Welcome to the Mental Playbook. I'm here with Joey Hewitt, a professional basketball player and now a mental coach. Hi, Joey. How are you?
Great, Malia. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
Awesome. So, what sparked your interest in specifically basketball, and how did that journey take you around the world?
I grew up in a very sporty family. Always just was playing sports growing up, and I really started to fall in love with basketball. As corny as this may sound, from Steph Curry. I grew up in the Bay Area. Watched the Warriors. Grew up as a big Warriors fan, and once I saw someone who was, like 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, soaking wet, looked like a boy amongst men, but he was out there dominating. It really piqued my interest as someone who was pretty similar in frame to him. I was always a late bloomer growing up. I was the smallest kid. I always wore number one as my uniform because, that was for the small kid. And I had a lot of confidence issues and I loved sports, but I didn't really get into basketball and start to commit to it until Steph Curry started to make me believe in myself and help me understand that, maybe I can do this. So it all comes from just an idol or an inspiration. And I think that's, there's so much beauty in that.
Yeah. And so, how did your experience playing professionally, like in different places like Australia and England, shape your mindset on and off the court?
It really was it was a lot of ups and downs. I wouldn't say it was all just, peaches and roses. It was far from that. There was multiple times where I, doubted myself, where I didn't want to play anymore. Even going back to high school and college, where I didn't think I was good enough. So I think playing professionally and going to different countries and continents to go play the sport really helped me just tap into the love for the game, like why I started playing it in the first place, because it was very easy for me to get caught up in the business side of it, or really just like the job side of it. It turned into my job out of nowhere, and I felt a lot of external pressure and a lot of stress and just overall expectations from playing a sport professionally. So, for me, it really helped me. I eventually got to the point where I was like, okay, I just need to have fun with this. Like, why would I not enjoy this right now? I got really tapped into gratitude overseas when I was playing, because I didn't have a lot of people out there. I didn't have, a lot of different ways to kind of deal with the stress and the expectations and the pressure. So I kind of used the game and went backwards and went back to, the reason why I started playing it, which was just to have fun.
Yeah, and was there a moment or experience that made you realize that you wanted to pursue basketball professionally?
I always kind of grew up wanting it, like I'd say around when I got to high school, that's really when Steph Curry started to get big. And I would always be out in my backyard visualizing myself in the NBA, imagining myself playing with NBA players and all of that. So I feel like I've always been like a dreamer. I've always used visualization in that way. I used visualization before I even knew what it was, just imagining myself in professional scenarios and imagining myself playing at the highest level. So I'd say it's been rooted in me for over a decade. And, I just started to fall in love with the process of the work. And that's really when it started to align with the reality.
Yeah, and you brought up not really having anyone overseas. What does support mean to you, especially, just playing in different countries?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because it's the unseen side of professional sports or playing overseas. I think there's a lot of players who play in college or want to play in college, and then they want to go play professionally. And playing in college versus playing professionally, it's like night and day. It's a completely different environment. When I was in college, the support was all around me. I had coaches constantly checking in on me. I had teammates who I lived with who, were cut from the same cloth as me. I had resources on campus that I could go to go see a counselor, to go get help if I needed it. And when I got overseas, all of that was really stripped away. The coach didn't really care about me. He cared about him winning. And I was his, chess piece to help him do that. My teammates, a lot of my teammates, especially the ones from the native country, they didn't care about me. They were more so like, why is this guy coming in and taking all of the shots and taking all of the glory and all the reputation, So For me, I think it relied on my support system back home for sure. And, that can get tough because when I was in England, I was 8 hours ahead of everyone back home in California. So it got tough. So it came down to support system back home, but really, I think a big part of it as well was being able to go out and explore a new country and find gratitude in that. I found a lot of support in going to a random coffee shop and chatting it up with a random guy. And I'm an introvert. I hate doing that type of stuff. But I think I found a lot of just holistic benefit in that because it made me realize that it's bigger than basketball. I'm here in a different country and I can connect with people from a completely different culture. And, that I think on top of just relying on the support system I had back home really helped me find that balance.
Yeah, I'm sure it was difficult trying to fit in, but you're right, stepping out of your comfort zone can help a lot. What inspired you to pursue sports psychology after your basketball career?
Um, I would say I pursued it in my basketball career. To be honest, I started to pursue it when I got to college, and I played Division III, and I was always, as a kid, as anyone who's in high school would understand this. Everyone wants to go D1. It's all about D1, D1, D1. So when I went D3, my first inclination in my mind was, okay, well, I better play right away. I better get minutes right off the bat, and I didn't. And I was sitting on the bench as the very last guy on the bench right when I got to college, and my whole worldview was shattered. I really was at rock bottom there. I wanted to quit basketball. I hated the sport. I hated showing up to practice every day. Games were like, whatever, I'm not going to play. And if I do, it'll be at the end of the game and it won't matter. So I think I started to realize about 2 months into my freshman season in college that this wasn't working. Like, this isn't going to sustain itself. I can't do this for 4 years. And I did something that is like one of the hardest things for young athletes to do is ask for help. And I went to my coach and I was like, I don't feel good. Like, I don't really want to be here. Like, I need help. And he set me up with a mental performance coach. His name is Graham Betchart, and he's become my mentor. He's, such a big influence in my life. And he really did help me. He helped me realize that so much of sports is mental. And I had no idea. I mean, it's becoming more normalized now, but this stuff, this is back in 2015. I had no idea any of this stuff existed. I didn't really get it. So once he started to open up my mind to this type of stuff, like being present, focusing on what's in my control, doing, breath work, meditation, journaling, I think that's when I really started to realize, like, oh, this is clicking for me. This is exactly what I want to do. I always grew up and I always remember thinking, like, I just want to be happy. That was my goal and my purpose in life. I just want to be happy. I want to be happy with what I'm doing. And this was the thing that I found brought me pure joy. And I grew up as, as a high school kid who hated school. I didn't like any of the classes I took. Like, they're all right, but I didn't find passion in any of the subjects in school until I found psychology, which then intertwined with sports, which then created really the love for the game and the love for this field. Yeah, I fell in love with it through experience though, and through negative experience, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, that's nice to have a mentor like Graham. You brought up something interesting about the divisions, and I think there is such a maybe negative connotation, especially for like athletes going into D3 or D2, something that's not D1. So, what advice do you have for those athletes who are going into a division that's not D1?
Oh, this is so important, I feel like, because when I was a senior in high school, I was like, if I don't go D1, I'll never play past college. And I think, it was proven false because I did end up playing past college. And I think the biggest thing is just understanding, like, what do you want with your sport? What is the real purpose of you playing your sport? Because the whole idea of going D1 is usually about an external reward, right? It's about feeling that sense of status, feeling that sense of, well, I can post on my Instagram of, me being committed to a D1 school. But how long does that really sustain itself? That'll be cool for like maybe a couple of hours, and then you'll just be longing for more. You'll be like, wait, now what? So I think the biggest thing or the biggest piece of advice I can give young athletes who are like maybe going D2 or D3 or thinking about, should I go D1 or D2 or D3? Ask yourself what really matters. Is it the post that you can create when you go D1? Is it the fact that you can tell people that you're D1? Or is it the fact that you get to play the sport you love with no stress in the world, without having the idea or the expectations of like everything has so much pressure on it? Because D1 is like that. It's really, it's like a business right away, especially now, with NIL and everything. It becomes a business right away. I played Division 3 and I had the time of my life after my freshman year. It took me a little bit, but my last 3 years, I had so much fun and I was in pure joy. I didn't have a lot of stress or pressure or expectations because I was playing for the love of the game, which I think a lot of people do who play Division 2 or Division 3, is they're just focused on the love for the game. So I think it comes down to just asking yourself that question, like what really matters to me within my sport. If that stuff of like I really got to go D1 for these reasons, if that really matters, then go ahead and go for it. I encourage everyone to go for it. But for me, I was just like, I want to play. I just want to get on the court and play.
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure on having that label. So, how has your background as a pro athlete influenced the way you work with athletes today?
Yeah, I just think I have a lot of empathy. I understand the the ebbs and flows of a sports season. I've been at very low lows and I've been at very high highs. So I try and just meet the athlete where they are and really try and give them that perspective of it is all going to work out in the end, because there are so many times where I was there in the heat of the moment. I'll call back to what I mentioned my freshman year. I was like, I want to quit. There's no way I could do 4 years of college basketball. And I did it and I made it through it. But in the moment, I wish I would have had a little bit more faith and a little bit more gratitude through the struggle. So I think, the biggest way I can help athletes is just understanding and giving them that faith of like, hey, I promise you this is helping you, because I've been through some really tough days. I've been through some really hard moments, and every single one of them made me better. And the beauty is, they don't make me better. Like, yeah, they make me better as a basketball player, but now that I'm, out of the game and I'm focused more on coaching, I realized it made me a better person, a better just human being. And I think that's something that I really try and, get the point across to athletes I work with, because eventually the ball stops dribbling. Eventually you're gonna be on to something else. So the number one thing you should be doing in your sport is learning how to become a better person and grow as a person, because it's gonna pay dividends down the line for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Could you give some examples of the most common mental challenges that either you face or just athletes in general, and how do you overcome those?
Yeah, I'd say like one that comes to mind, the one that I experienced was like lack of playing time. If you're not playing a lot, and I'd say the number one thing that holds people back during this is something called control the controllables. Every coach in the world has said that before, but it's so true, because when I wasn't playing, all I was doing was blaming. I was like, well, he's not better than me. Why is he getting more minutes than me? Or like I make one mistake in practice and my coach grills me, but he can make this mistake and it's all good. The more I was focused on the uncontrollables that were going on in my sport, the worse my playing time situation got. So I think playing time is a really big one where people struggle with, and they think like, oh, I gotta play, I always gotta be playing, and if I'm not playing, I'm failing. It's not like that. It's a step-by-step process, and if you're not playing, there's a reason why you're not playing. Instead of trying to point fingers and diffuse the responsibility, one of the most important life skills is trying to look introspectively and see, what can I do differently? What is one thing I can do to maybe change my situation a bit? There's so many more examples as I think about it, but I'd say that's like the biggest one that I hear a lot, is lack of playing time, or just like not playing well. Like, oh, I'm just not playing well. I feel like I'm thinking a lot. I'm overthinking. And to me, that goes back to really just like not being in the moment. So often our thoughts occur in the past and the future. We're thinking about something that just happened or something that's going to happen. So with athletes that are constantly overthinking and thinking about so much that's going on, I remind them, just take a breath, take one breath for one moment and just allow yourself to be present and see what that feels like. And you'll start to realize that's the feeling that you want to replicate.
Yeah. Can you walk us through some proper techniques, including like breath or just self-talk that you teach your clients?
Yeah, one of my favorites that I teach, especially with younger athletes, is using both together, actually, self talk and the breath. It's a phrase called smell the roses, blow out the candles. And it's something that really helps people learn how to focus on the breath. Because, the whole goal with the mental game is to fill space in your brain. You're not always going to believe you saying, like, okay, I got this. Like, you might say that, and then immediately your brain could go to, like, well, no, I don't. Like, I suck. So, it's less about believing the things you're saying. That'll happen in the long term. But for the short term and for the day to day, step by step process of it, you just want to fill space in your brain. So for me, I think smell the roses, blow out the candles is one of the best ways to do that because you can combine meditation in the form of breathing. Because when you smell a rose, you inhale through your nose. When you blow out candles, you exhale through your mouth. It has a semblance of self-talk in it in the sense of, okay, smell the roses, that's something that's calming to me. Smell the roses can also be a euphemism for just like enjoying the moment, like enjoy what you're doing. And then blow out the candles is as well, just like allowing yourself to just relax, just blow out the candles. And then the last piece of it is visualization. If you can imagine yourself smelling a rose and imagine yourself blowing out like a big birthday cake full of candles while you're doing the breathing, you're going to be pretty locked into that breath versus taking a deep breath. And the whole time you're taking that breath, you're thinking about that turnover you just had or the mistake you just made. That's probably not going to do the same amount of benefit. So for me, that's one of the most paramount exercises I use with athletes. It's something I do in a lot of my sessions is just, even if we just do it one time, just smell the roses real quick, blow out the candles, and it allows the athlete to learn to get focused on the breath, to get present, and to learn how to use self-talk and visualization all in one.
Yeah. And like you said, there is going to be negative self-talk sometimes. So how can we turn that into a more empowering and positive language?
I think, this is something that a lot of people struggle with. I struggled with this a lot when I was playing, when I first was starting to learn about this stuff, is I was like, I'm still having negative thoughts. Like I can't get rid of them. And I think that's the issue is negative thoughts are always going to be there. The same way how anxiety and nervousness are always going to be there. The best athletes in the world, they still get nervous. They still have doubts. They still have negative thoughts. They just have gotten really good at dealing with those things. So, I think that's the mindset around it is it's not about the negative thoughts you have. It's about what you do right after you have that negative thought. So for example, if I say I suck right after I make a mistake on the court or on the field, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up over that because that's what creates the pattern or the habit of negative self-talk. If you are able to counter that phrase with something else, and like I said, something to fill space in your brain rather than like, okay, I got to believe this next thing I'm going to say, then you're actually going to rewire your brain and train your mind to every time you think negative, you'll find something positive in it. And I can speak as a testimony, like that really works. I'm someone who has been doing this work for about 10 years now. And it doesn't happen right away, but I can guarantee you every time I have a negative thought or I have negative self talk, I have a thought of like, okay, well, what would I say? How would I get out of this? What is my counter to that thought? So I'd say it's really just, it's less about limiting negative self talk and more about noticing that negative self talk and then countering it with a positive phrase or a motivating phrase right after it.
Right. So in your opinion, what's the most underrated mental skill in sports?
Ooh, acceptance. And that's with an A, acceptance. Like to be able to accept what's going on around you. I think sports are so competitive that we can get into the opposite frame of thinking here, where it's like, no, it can't be this way. We can't lose. We're going to win. I mean, I used to hear it all the time growing up, and like in my pregame huddles and in the locker room, like we're winning this game, and I always hated it. I always was like, well, I don't know. I mean, this team's really good. Like, I don't know if we're going to win this game. And I think that was me trying to get to a place of acceptance, really. And I think when you have full acceptance in your sport, and what I mean by that is you're not really caught up over the result. Like you're not going to be too up or too down based on the results that come up during the game. For example, in basketball, every shot that goes in, I'm not going to be like super happy. And every shot that doesn't go in or every time the other team scores, I'm not going to get super down on myself or react. If I can do that, I find way more flow. I find a lot more rhythm in my game, and I enjoy it more because when you go up and down, I call it the results roller coaster, where you just go on this ride. And it is like sometimes really, really fun, but sometimes it sucks. And it's like the worst thing ever. So I'd say acceptance is like the most underrated skill that not a lot of people talk about. Everyone talks about the breath, but I think people talk about the breath because it can help you get to acceptance. You know, self-talk can help you get to a place of like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. Whatever happens, happens. I'm okay. I'm good. That's all rooted in the idea of acceptance and just being able to accept what goes on around you while also still believing in yourself, which I think is really those two go hand in hand. You know, everyone talks about belief. You got to believe in yourself. I'd say the other side of that is, well, you got to believe in yourself and then accept whatever happens.
Yeah. So a lot of times success can mean like the end result, like winning. But truly, what does it mean to you, especially when it comes to supporting your clients?
Yeah, right. I think everything around this world is about results. You know, it's all about results. Everything is about just how many, you know, how many points you had, how much money you make, how many followers you have. That's all people care about. And it's really the opposite way I try to live my life. And to me, the most fulfilling things that I'll get from a parent of an athlete I work with or the athlete himself or herself is I had a lot of fun today. Like I'm enjoying the sport more. To me, that just as an athlete too, I understand. Like I know what it's like to not enjoy your sport. And you could have a good game, but if you don't enjoy your sport, it doesn't even really matter. So for me, it's all about joy. It's about the enjoyment of it. Are you going out there like a kid again? Where think about kids playing sports. They have a smile on their face the whole time. They're laughing, they're giggling. It's pure bliss. To me, that's what, you know, success looks like is if you're out there enjoying your sport and you're having fun, the results are going to align eventually. I guarantee it. Because when you are having fun and you're playing with joy, you're loose, your mind is quiet, you're not tense, you're allowing yourself, you're giving yourself the best opportunity to go out there and play your best. You might not play your best, but you're going to continue to put yourself in the right mindset and the right frame of thinking to play your best, which is all you can do in sports.
Yeah, and for those who fear failure or like struggle with anxiety, what is your approach to working with those athletes?
So common. I mean, the most common fear is failure, especially in sports. So I have a phrase for that. It's called run to the roar. And it's rooted in a story where the moral of the story is to keep it short and sweet. If you run away from your fears, you're going to end up worse than if you were to run through them. And I think that's something that I try and get athletes to understand is running through the fear is actually that is the win. It's not about if you know succeed or not. It's just the action of going for it that is success. That takes a little bit of pressure off of the result and puts it more on the process of just doing it, which I think is helpful. And then as well, I think you know it goes back to joy and having fun. There has to be a sense of gratitude because you know I think of pressure in that type of situation. A lot of times people fear failure in pressurized moments and high pressure situations. If you look at all of the top athletes, they will constantly say that gratitude is their counter to pressure. Gratitude is that thing that can almost go the complete opposite direction of pressure. So I would encourage athletes to focus on something a little bit more simple as like just going for it. So for example, in basketball, instead of trying to, if you're fearing missing a shot, I don't want to miss a shot because I'm going to let my team down. Well, I would argue that letting your team down is just not trusting your shot. If you have a shot and you don't trust it, that's actually letting your team down. Your goal is to just trust your shots. If you miss every single one, you are getting better at dealing with that fear of failure, and you're going to eventually get to the point where it doesn't have the same amount of weight. So yeah, I'd say it's a twofold answer. It really just comes down to being able to run through your fears and understand that that's actually the better option, and then having gratitude for that and being grateful in that moment.
Yeah. So how do you coach athletes to stay present during those high pressure moments?
The breath is always number one, and that's just something that can be done one time. It can be done during a timeout. It can be done before the game. But the breath is definitely something that I think is important to do to stay in the moment. And then the other thing is like focal points or mental cues is another term for it. A lot of people, baseball players will write something under the brim of their cap. Football players will put something on their wrist tape. I used to write something on my shoes. There's multiple things you can do that can kind of get you back into the moment. That can be like a reminder for you. For me, I just wrote, "I'm here" on my shoes. And every time I'd look at my shoes, I remind myself, I'm right here. I'm where my feet are. And that's just an instant reset for me. I think coupling the breath with that is the best move. Being able to find something to look at. It could be in the stadium, in the stands, it could be on the field, and then taking a breath is a great way to kind of just reset yourself. But yeah, it always, whenever I hear be present, it always starts with the breath.
Yeah, I like that. So, how do the mind and body influence each other when it comes to overall health and performance?
Oh, they're so connected. It's a common, it's a common buzzword, like the mind body connection. And I think the reason is because, I think of like physical exercise as an example. Anytime you go work out, you mentally feel clearer after. And I think it's because, the mind and the body are connected in that way. When you work out, you send a lot of oxygen up to your brain. It literally clears your mind. And I think being able to keep track of your physical health and keep yourself physically healthy is directly correlated with keeping yourself mentally healthy. And that's a bi-directional relationship. I think it goes both ways. If you can continue to keep yourself mentally healthy, you'll be more inclined to want to keep yourself physically healthy. So I would say it's super connected. And then it really, another term that comes to mind with this is muscle memory. Muscle memory is really the root of peak performance in sport. When we are playing our best in whatever sport you play, it is directly in line with muscle memory. You are relying on muscle memory for the most part. So that is the essence of the mind body connection wrapped into one term. Muscle memory is all about clearing your mind so you can let your body do the work. So I think it's so connected because if you don't get your mind right, you are going to get in you're going to get in your own way and not let your body do what it's physically capable of doing. And it goes both ways. Injuries can affect that as well. If you're physically injured, you could mentally not be in the right place. So they're super connected, and I think it's important to take care of both of them.
Yeah. And what are ways or resources we can use to take care of both our mental and physical well-being?
Yeah, I think journaling is a great mental tool to use anytime if you're overthinking, if you have a lot of thoughts, write it down. It is scientifically proven and just from experience, it is one of my favorite exercises to do. If I'm super stressed about something coming up, or if I'm thinking about all of the things that have been happening the past week, writing them down instantly helps me just see it from a different perspective and get it out of my brain and onto paper. Um, I'll go back to the breath again, just being able to take deep breaths throughout the course of a day, spend 1 minute of your day meditating. I think that's the problem is so many people struggle with it. I'm one of them of like meditating every day. You have to do it for 10 minutes every day. Just focus on doing it whenever you can. Don't put this burden on it in the sense of I have to do it. I take millions of deep breaths over the past 10 years that I couldn't even tell you when or how I did them. They just kind of happened because I was just, in the moment. I was trying to maybe get myself into a better state of mind without even realizing it. So I think it's about doing that intentional work with journaling, but it's also just about having habits. It's about creating habits in your daily routine of taking a deep breath, of reminding yourself it's going to be okay. And then from the physical side, I think just sweating is really, really important. Getting yourself to sweat is, I mean, obviously it's physiologically very helpful, but also it helps you mentally feel better about yourself. And then just it goes back to joy, like doing something you want to do while physically getting yourself in a better position is, in my opinion, one of the greatest feelings in the world. Like instead of going to go lift weights, if you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, going outside and playing football with your friends or something like that type of stuff, I think helps you kind of prioritize both. But yeah, I think for the physical part, it really just comes down to being active, like just getting yourself out for a walk or getting yourself out with friends and doing something fun is one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, and you brought up injuries and its impact on the mind. How do you help athletes develop resilience after an injury or even just a tough loss?
Yeah, injuries are really tough because, there's a lot of studies that show athletes who are anxious about re-injury are far more likely to get re-injured. So if you injured yourself and you're coming back and you're constantly thinking, well, I don't want to hurt it, I don't want to hurt it, I don't want to hurt it again, you're actually putting yourself at more likelihood to get re-injured. So something that I do a lot with injured athletes is visualization, being able to imagine themselves playing their sport with full commitment and full trust in what they're doing or whatever that body part is that's hurt. Imagining themselves feel it at full strength and at full health is a great way to kind of prime the brain away from the natural underlying anxiety of wanting to get hurt, or sorry, of fearing re-injury. And I think being able to just, one, do the visualization, but then two, go back to journaling and journal like, why do you enjoy this sport, and really try and tap into the reasons why you like playing your sport, or the little things that you like about your sport, the things that you can do even when you're not fully healthy, kind of helps you get into the right frame of thinking within that injury. I've been injured and I feel it. Like, I definitely felt a lot of thoughts come up when I first came back to the court. I was always just thinking like, is my knee hurt? Is it good? Like, it felt like a sharp pain right there. Am I done? What's going on? And the more thoughts you have while playing your sport, the worse you're going to do. So visualization helps with that. But again, journaling helps just put all those thoughts out there. And then it goes back to acceptance. If you can do those things, you can help yourself just accept what's going to happen and then let go and allow yourself to play with full freedom.
Yeah. And it's really difficult because injuries can be, game ending, season ending. What is your advice for those athletes who have to sit on the sidelines watching their team play without them?
Don't push it away. I would say really try and sit in that moment and use those moments to remind yourself of those little things that you can still enjoy while you're in a situation that probably sucks. Like, I've been there and it's not fun. I'm not going to sugarcoat it in any way, but when you do that, when you allow yourself to be still in that moment and not push it away, which is what everyone wants to do, is like, oh, I just don't even think about it, just escape. Like, I just show up and then I leave. Well, then when you come back, you're not going to have the same sense of gratitude for what you're doing. But when you allow yourself to just be in that moment and, take it one day at a time and find the little victory of that given day, then when you do get back, you're going to have a lot more gratitude. And maybe you don't come back. Maybe it's a season-ending injury and then you don't play sports again. I promise you, you're going to have more gratitude in your everyday life if you just sit with that and allow yourself to be present in that tough moment or in that tough stretch. Because it's such a cliche, but it really is true. It's like, tough times don't last, tough people do. That will make you tougher and more resilient as a person if you're able to just sit there and be with it. And it's hard, but allow yourself to find one little thing that you can be grateful for in that moment.
Yeah. So with all the work you do, what is your mental playbook that keeps you going?
I would say it definitely revolves around the things I've already talked about. I'd say deep breaths are like just so underrated. I just think people don't talk about that enough. Like, deep breaths to me are my saving grace sometimes in a day. I could be spiraling a little bit in the sense of just thoughts, stress. And then one deep breath can kind of set me back on track. Being able to find more times to do that is important because it is a skill. Breathing is a skill. It is something you can train. So I've noticed I've gotten better at breathing. I've gotten better at feeling the calmness and the relaxation from a deep breath because I've done it so much over the past 10 years. Um, Another huge piece of my mental playbook, this was more as an athlete, but I still do it now, is that visualization, is imagining, dreaming, really, stuff we used to do as a kid all the time. Our imagination allowed us to go to any place we wanted. But as we grow up and as we get older, that gets kind of cut off. And another thing that I just think isn't addressed enough, especially in like high school athletes who are starting to feel the stress and the pressure of like college and of, where am I going to go? Am I going to play in college? I don't know. all of that stuff takes you away from the purity of the game. So I think being able to go outside and listen to music and play your sport alone, or go out with your friends and play with no stress and no pressure, is a great way to kind of reconnect with that just love for the game. But it also, to me, just stems from belief. Like, I always am writing down in my journal things that I want to do, things that I'm going to do, manifesting things through that belief, and then coupling that or pairing that with acceptance, with the idea of, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And I let go of the results, but I focus on the day to day process of what I can do every single day. And I journal about that all the time. I breathe on that all the time. I meditate on that all the time. And I visualize that all the time of who I want to become.
Yeah. So it's easy for athletes to get really caught up in their sport, especially with NIL deals and social media. What is your advice for them to find their own identity separate from their sport?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to a guy who definitely didn't do this the right way. I'm a mental performance coach, so I'm really like, my identity, I feel like, is still wrapped in basketball. It's just less as an athlete now, and my purpose is now about, helping others. And I think that right there is a big part of it. Like, you can transcend your sport and you can go beyond your sport while still loving your sport. For me, basketball, like I said earlier, it makes me a better person. When I'm playing basketball, it really forces me to be a better person. There's times when I play with bad teammates and I want to just be like, yo, F you, dude. Like, you suck. Like, pass me the ball. But I have to, hold my tongue and go up to him and be like, yo, keep shooting. You're good. I have to learn how to be a good teammate around people who are maybe difficult to deal with. I have to learn how to, be responsible and have time management and just be locked in on a goal and a mission and not really waver from that. All of these things that we do within our sport are making us better people in so many different ways. So if you can attach to one thing that your sport is helping you with that is beyond your sport, I think that's a great way to kind of dissociate your identity from the sport itself. For me, it's really just about being a good person. As a player, that was really what I tried to. I want to be a good person out there. I can become a better person from this game. And that's something my mentor, Graham, used to always tell me. He's like, you're growing as an individual. This is something that is beyond the sport. Use today to become a better teammate. Use today to become more resilient as a person. So if you can connect your identity to being a resilient person, or being a hard worker, or being a really good teammate, rather than being really good at shooting the basketball or being really good at scoring goals, now you're going to start to build something that is sustainable and something you can use for the rest of your life. Because that's really what our goal is. You don't want to like take everything out of the sport, because there's so many good lessons in sport. You just want to go beyond it, like zoom out a little bit, because it's just a game. But the game itself is teaching you bigger things that are helping you beyond yourself as a basketball player or a soccer player or a baseball player.
Yeah. So my last question for you is, what is most important to you, the destination, the journey, or the company?
Ooh, you threw in a third option there. Wow. Because I was going to say that was an easy question until you threw that third option in there. I think if you ask any mental coach, that question, they're always going to say the journey. But it's weird when you throw in the company, because the company is what, can be such a big indicator of how the journey is going to be and where the destination is going to end up. So I can definitely take out destination. That's definitely not the most important to me. It used to be, and then it just created a bunch of pressure and it created a bunch of letdowns. So I spent a lot of my life focusing on destinations, and it wasn't that fun. So I would say, the journey probably outweighs company, just because I've been in places where I didn't have a lot of company, and I found love in the journey just through myself, and through just my process of becoming a better person. But I think the journey and the company really do go hand in hand. If you have good company, you'll enjoy the journey more. And if you're focused on the journey, you will attract good company to you. I think people really they see value in people who love the journey and have just exuberant joy in what they're doing every single day. But if I had to pick one, I would go with the journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joey, for joining me on the Mental Playbook. To my listeners, mind strong, game on.
Love it. Thanks for having me.